Hello there, I'm Bigalius. Good morning, and I am, goddamn, I am impressed. I'm very, very impressed. This is Hellblade II, Senua Saga. They say her name constantly in the game, and I still don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce this character's name.
Semua.
But this is Hellblade 2. I'm very, very impressed by this game because it is an astonishing feat in game design, in terms of cinematic game design. Essentially, what this game is this is what happens when you take all of your skill points and you apply all of them to cinematic gameplay. Now, I have to remind you that I have a Bachelor of Arts with honors in film, so I'm not like other gamers. It sounds like a YouTube channel made in 2009.
What I like to call the Nintendo shit cube.
But I'm not like other gamers. I will admit wholeheartedly that graphics matter to me. And not just good graphics, not fidelity, but a good art style matters to me. This is why games like Minecraft and Fortnite were so popular, is because they had a very unique and instantly recognizable art style. I think it is important. I think graphics and visuals and audio, are very important. And they are top notch here. They're about as good as it gets. And not just the graphics. The audio here is really tremendous. I didn't expect to have such an amazing experience with the audio here, but essentially, you have these voices in your head. They have this binaural, something along those lines, audio system. So if you put headphones in, you're going to hear someone in your left ear, and they're going to shift over to the right ear, and it's tremendously immersive. Senua has these voices in her head, it's her voice, but with different sort of like accents and cadences here and there. And you hear those voices sort of doubting you and telling you that you're doing things wrong, or maybe aligning with you here and there. And the allegiance is never clear. They don't just mock you the entire time, or they're not just on your side the entire time. It shifts all the time. And one thing that I don't think I liked on paper, and I didn't think would be good on paper, but actually is excellent in practice, is the fact that these guys never stop. They keep talking in your head at all times, and it never lets up. You could be having a chat with someone, and you're having a conversation, but in the back of your head, it's like, I don't trust him. Do you trust him? Oh, I'm not sure. Or like you could be walking up a stone wall, but you're struggling, and it's like, she's not going to make it. Did she make it before? I think there was a time when she didn't make it. And there's all of these voices in your head, and it's so immersive.
You thought you got away.
No.
You thought you left it behind in hell.
Dillian, you're Dillian. You're lovely, Dillian. Him.
But you will never be free of this.
His pain, his suffering.
However far you...
Alongside these incredible graphics and, the excellent animations of you stumbling across these stones is absolutely fantastic and creates such an immersive experience. And I again, as someone who's very into like cinematography and the visual language of storytelling, I'm tremendously impressed by what this game has achieved. It is a hell of an astonishing feat. Probably the best looking video game on console. And an absolutely immense experience. The locations are absolutely stunning. They feel like these sort of barren locations, but that are filled with like mystery and little bits here and there to stumble through. The mist that like bathes some of the areas makes it feel so dramatic. The visuals really do a lot to make this game feel very dramatic. Either that, or you're just like surrounded by fire, so you feel dramatic then too. The voice acting is tremendous. The writing is absolutely fantastic. And the characters you really do get behind. This is a freaky experience. I want to put a warning here right now. It can be a very freaky, creepy experience. And it feels so intense. It is such an intense... For a game that's so bare bones, it is absolutely, completely intense. And you can come away from this game absolutely exhausted, climbing through like little cubby holes and areas under abandoned ships and what have you. And then, with these voices in your head, and then you go straight to combat. It's just this intense experience. So in terms of an experience, they have absolutely nailed this, and I'm completely flabbergasted. I think it's an excellent experience. But there are issues. And of course, when you create a game as cinematic as this, you are going to encounter issues. And there are some. Firstly, this is a around about 6-hour single player only game. So if that's not enough for you, then that could be an issue for you. The combat, or the gameplay overall. So here's the thing. The game is visually beautiful. It's a cinematic experience. It's very immersive. It's creepy, blah, blah, blah. But when you focus so much of your effort in that direction, and I'm glad they did, by the way, I'm glad that a game exists that push things as far as they could go in terms of cinematic gameplay. Don't get me wrong. This pushes cinematic gameplay as far as it can go. And there's no other games trying that. There's no other games that have come this close. And I'm very glad that a game like this exists and that Ninja Theory were given the chance to make this game. But when you do, you have to pull back on gameplay, and they really have here. The gameplay is tremendously minimal. There is not much going on in terms of gameplay here. It's basically divided into 3 areas: walking, puzzles, and combat. Obviously, walking is great because the environments are beautiful. The puzzles, they're not that mind-bendy, and so you kind of encounter this situation where it's like, for me, someone who doesn't really like puzzles in video games, I'm annoyed because there's puzzles. For someone who does love puzzles, it must be annoying because they're not difficult enough. So it's kind of like catch-22. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But they're okay. It's you have to like find the perspective in order to match up these symbols so that you can get through these gates. And I appreciate the subtext of switching perspective can unlock your ability to see what's going on. That's great. It's very subtextual. It's the same as the first game, honestly. And it's great here too. I thought it was great there. The combat. I like the combat. I like how it feels to use the sword. I like, dodging, parrying. I like slashing. It's your standard borrowed from software style gameplay where, you have your light attack, you have your heavy attack. You can block, dodge, and parry, and it's essentially a very similar button layout. It's actually not the same. I think it's A to dodge. But yeah, it's just standard hack and slash gameplay. But essentially every encounter plays out in the same way. You're walking along a path, someone grabs you, you tussle with them, you get away from them in order to fight them, you slash, block, parry, blah, blah, blah. And then someone else grabs you and there's something else that happens in the scene. It's very focalized. The camera is tremendously tight, and like I said, you go from person to person to person. These are individual encounters each time. I like the gameplay. I like what Ninja Theory did to to window dress the fact that you're going from encounter to encounter to encounter. The battlefields feel very hurried, and there's people like screaming, running around, and then you get someone grabs hold of you and lassos you over to another area, and it can feel very intense. But because it's very individually focused, the camera's so tight, you are just going from one person to one person to one person. The scale of the combat doesn't feel really that big. Plus, I really enjoy, in games like this, juggling the enemies and going from enemy to enemy to enemy to enemy. That's part of the tactic, and you don't get to do that here. I understand why you don't, based off the first game. A lot of people had issues with how tight the camera was based off the fact that you had to juggle enemies. I just wish Ninja Theory would have allowed the camera to pull back just for the gameplay encounters, so that we can then juggle enemies and have larger scale battles. The battles don't really feel overly large scale. Now, I understand the game itself is very intimate, so it kind of works in the context. But personally speaking, I like a game where the battles feel big. They feel like large scale conflicts. So, that's a bit of a drawback. Plus, as a lot of people have been saying, the combat itself is, like I said, it's very basic. When you make it so focalized and put so much emphasis on this is the fight, and then the combat is no different to any other sort of From Software-esque combat, then it does feel a bit like, well, why are we focusing so heavily on this? And my final complaint. Oh yeah, and also there's not enough combat in this game. It doesn't pop up nearly enough. It's very few and far between. And my final complaint is one that is egregious and one that I'm not happy about and does annoy me, and I'm sure won't annoy other people, but it has annoyed me, and that's that this game is in 30 FPS widescreen. Okay, so I understand that the game looking as amazing as this, it was never going to be in 60 FPS, so I guess the 30 FPS thing is fine. Widescreen, what a bizarre choice. That is a choice, and it's a terrible one. I'm really not happy with the fact that this game is in widescreen. There's a reason every filmmaker is pushing to get their films made in IMAX, because it's so much more immersive. And in a game that's trying to be as immersive as this, rather than, I mean, yeah, I get it's trying to be cinematic, but it's trying to be very immersive. To put it into widescreen is just mind-blowing to me. The entire game, all of the gameplay, all of the walking around is in widescreen, and I understand that it matches the cinematics and makes it so that you can transition very smoothly from the cinematics to the gameplay. But no, it's not good enough. I think it really puts a damper on the experience. We tried this with Evil Within 1, it didn't work, and then with Evil Within 2, they switched to full screen. It's mind-blowing, and I'm not happy about that. But overall, this game is a tremendous experience. It really is a fantastic experience. It's just let down by a few things, things that they can definitely iron out with a third game, which hopefully they'll get to make, because I want to have another experience like this. This is what gaming's all about, right? Is creating these experiences and pushing things as far as we can go. And for that, I'm tremendously impressed. So let's throw a score on this. Yeah, I wish it could be higher, and it would be if they iron out those issues. So hopefully with Hellblade 3, we can be looking at an absolute masterpiece. So those are my thoughts, and I'll see everyone later.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.